Welcome to AIPAD Talks Depth of Field, a series of conversations between AIPAD member galleries and their artists. I'm Irene Papaifthimio. I'm the Associate Director of the Photography Show, which is presented by AIPAD. Before we get started, I would like to encourage everyone to check out our previous AIPAD Talks on our YouTube channel, which includes our programming from the Photography Show last April. We hope, of course, that you'll join us for this year's edition of the fair, taking place in New York from April 22nd through the 26th at the Park Avenue Armory. Tickets are now live on apad.com. Today's talk features artist Tommy Kha in conversation with Milly Cai, partner at Higher Pictures in Brooklyn, New York. If you have any questions for Tommy and Milly, please send them to the Q&A, and your questions will be answered towards the end of the talk. And now I would like to hand it over to Milly and Tommy. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you, Irene. I'm pleased to welcome and introduce Tommy Kha, a photographer born in Memphis, Tennessee, and now based in Brooklyn, New York. Kha grew up as a queer child in an immigrant family whose multi-generational journey from China through Vietnam led to the American South. This experience deeply informs the conceptual core of his work, and it is from this intersection of identity, history, and place that Kha has developed a distinctive visual language that gently but insistently expands what self-portraiture can be. In his photographs, Kha often appears through masks of his own face or as cutouts of his torso, his eyes, or hands, and he uses these fragments as stand-ins for the body. His images can feel playful and disarming at first, but they also carry an uncanny sense of displacement, this feeling of not quite belonging. And at the same time, these gestures operate as acts of assertion and literal insertions of the artist into the frame. This then invites us to think about presence, visibility, and who has traditionally been seen and remembered within the history of photography and history of art in general. Tommy Kha holds an MFA in photography from Yale, where he currently teaches. He is a 2025 Guggenheim Fellow and a recipient of the 2025 Hayes Prize. Tommy's first solo museum show is currently on view at the Addison Gallery of American Art in Andover, Massachusetts, and the exhibition catalog recently launched in tandem with the show. And we'll include a link in the chat so you can inquire and get your own copy of the catalog. Tommy's current exhibition at Higher Pictures is titled Leftovers, and it's behind me right now. It has been extended through February 7th. And the show features a single large-scale installation that comprises over 500 elements. And Tommy calls this a soft collage, and he'll be talking more about this process today. It is a pleasure to have this work at the gallery and an equal pleasure to be joining him today. So I'll let Tommy introduce his presentation.
Hi, thank you so much, Milly. Thank you, everybody. I hope everyone is staying warm. It's fairly cold in New York at the moment. I am going to start this webinar with this image of this pretty much the summary of where I last left off. A lot of the things that are up at the moment at the Addison and at Higher Pictures are kind of a result of a few things that were going on in the last few years. So I'm gonna try to walk you guys through that in a really reverse engineering type deal. So yeah, hi. I'm mostly also thank you, AIPAD. Yay. And thank you for being here as well. Uh, this is a earlier, well, I guess, early recent picture. What is time? I made this one of the my trips to back home in Memphis, where I'm from. I grew up down the street from Elvis Presley's house in Graceland, in the neighborhood of Whitehaven, and I was pretty much informed by the South, the American landscape, and really I think a lot about how I tell people I'm from Memphis. They usually draw the kind of parallel to Elvis. Often it gets reduced to so you must have some sort of Elvis memorabilia in your house. Like, actually, no. I don't think my family knew who Elvis was when they picked this house to live in. But I really like starting with this image just because it contains a lot of elements that I work in and how we got here to where Milly is at the moment, what's going on behind her. I think the domestic space is really associated or akin to the photo studio. Thinking about the earlier pictures of photography, having to start out in a photo studio, and often the people who would buy these daguerreotypes or these studio portraits are coming in to place them in a family context, a familial home context. So often I would make my pictures in a domestic space. I think imagination, daydreaming, things of creativity can often happen in that space without having to rent a studio, especially in New York. But I travel to Memphis a lot. Mostly to continue to photograph the landscapes and the interiors. Often, I think people tend to associate, or I think of people tend to associate the American landscape in the South, particularly, as something to be stuck in the past or frozen in time in some sense. And I think in a way that is often true, but I think there is sort of a kind of palimpsest that happens, this multi-layering that occurs in not just the landscape, the histories, but also through the personhood and bodies and identities that form here. This photograph, Headtown, it's the 12th picture of this sort of short story. I try to avoid saying the word series a lot to describe my photography. I feel like I'm too all over the place to uh, actually have a series. I'm pretty sure I do. But with Headtown, it is kind of a display of not using Photoshop. I tend not to do that apart from cropping, color grading. I photograph with a digital camera. I used to photograph with a view camera 4x5, and that's sort of like a mix, but mostly a digital medium format. And things that are often created for the camera. This is all done in camera. It is a 3D printed mask of my face. And yeah, let me go to the next one. Oh, I'm going to try to go to the next one. Yay. Okay. It's a click. So with going back to Memphis, there's always this opportunity to learn more about my family's history. It's really abrupt, I would say. I don't think we know anything prior to, they're telling me it's 1950s. I don't know anything about my family's history prior to the 1950s, 1930s. Often it's really these kinds of information I do learn over a period of time is very sparse and very guarded in a way. I think they don't are my aunts, my grandma when she was around, my mom are had experienced the Vietnam War. For my grandmother, two wars, the Vietnam War and the civil unrest prior to arriving in Vietnam from South China. So it is kind of such a melding of so many different things coming together of of, of arriving into this very I don't want to say Memphis is a mythic place. It's real. It's a real place where real things have occurred. And immigration, yellow fever, the civil rights, and to something focused in the domestic space in the home, where my family arrived through Baptist churches sponsoring my family's citizenship rival to this country. So when I point the camera to my family, they're often the one of the regular cast of sitters. I have many cast of sitters that I would photograph apart from the self-portrait work that I mostly known for. I've really I don't think I'm interesting, but I keep making photographs of myself, so I'm not sure what I'm telling myself. I'm just lying to myself. I'm pretty sure. But often the one of the cast members would be my mom. And Millie, feel free if you want to interrupt me to ask questions about this. But I did start off with um, my solo show with Higher Pictures, a selection. I think it was 6 pictures with this long form collaboration with my mom, titled Ma, the Vietnamese word for mom. And my mom is really someone that's an active participant. We haven't made pictures because we're kind of fighting right now, which is a real relationship, parent and child. It's not always a straightforward relationship. But my mom is really a great collaborator. Someone that's really curious, but someone that's not someone that has experience art or education past the high school level. So the pictures, photography for her, for my family has is kind of why is this a career for me? It was a very questionable move. It's something for photography for them is often kept in a box, a shoe box in a closet. But I did had picked up a few cues from them, the little information that I have. My mom was a photographer. I've come to find out. About 5 years into our collaboration, making pictures together, she would set aside time. I'm really starting off with the earlier associations of the cutout of what went into the show. And I think pointing the camera to the subject matter, the cutout as a subject matter was simply my way of just not trying to go back and forth behind and in front of the camera a lot. It was really tiring. I work with a very difficult actor, sitter, and I'm a lot. And it's photography has been a really great activity that somehow, even though that my family hasn't really engaged with it, there's this really weird, deep understanding. There's a bit of they understand the customs, they understand the desire to point a camera to something, whether if it's for a record or celebration or I think art is still a far fetched thing to them, abstract thing for them. But I love that sense of mediation that making pictures. People sit for paintings all the time, I'm sure. But everyone, more people can sit or stand or be in front of the camera quite often and understand the kind of language that goes into it. So I like the time that the collaboration has come together. And often my mom puts up with my crazy ideas. Like, could you just like hold this and then like I'm gonna put my cardboard cutout over here. I will move this back. It's like a soft omeling. It's like the soft collaging, which is me moving things around and then moving things back, like slightly where I found it from. But the home became such a fun space for me to work out of. But often I'm really find a lot of joy of being outside in the world and on the road. Going to Yale MFA's photography program, I was influenced a lot by the street photography history there and wanting to continue just how to make this sort of sustainable over time. So this is kind of later, right? Quite recent, like 2 years ago, I made this picture of on a residency, and it has my MO of photographing out in the world is packing things in my backpack and hopefully like TSA or like whoever like pulls me over doesn't think it's just that weird. Like I've had TSA just look at the mask. They're more like put off by a portfolio of photography. Like, what's this box of prints? Is it drugs? It's like, no, it's like, hundreds of prints, but I'm just going to do a portfolio review. It's like, and just disregarding my bag of mask of my face and cardboard cutouts like that I packed, like they don't question that. It's just like a box of photographs. And maybe like the camera is too big. I would call it for that. But I'm really interested in working with this cutout and the different forms of it, the materials are often changing. I think you'll notice like I'm going back and forth between the mask from 3D printed plastic composite polymers to flat cardboard cutouts in my entire body. And it's something that I'm really interested in, and just how our identities can be distilled, reduced often, and create this sort of mass, this kind of caricature of one's personality or emotions. And it's also this kind of anonymity, that kind of safety that comes with wearing a mask, especially that. I'm reminded of photography that has that. It's the same kind of distance, that safety that a mask and a camera provide. So it was something, I don't know, going through my jilling wearing period, exploring other kinds of masks, of the costumes you can easily get. Temu, Amazon, online has really made things easier to access. When I was in growing up in Memphis, going to Memphis College of Art in 2007, no one was talking about the history of photography in China. No one was thinking about what was going on in the photography world in New York, in Memphis. Like, I was really wanting to know about that stuff. So the internet was something really kind of fun, a repository of all that information. I just didn't get out much. So it was like a lot of time spending at home, trying to figure out what I could do, and then trying to pick up these cues of my what my family would do, like collecting um, plastic bags that you get from the deli, and there's just this accumulation of plastic bags that constantly, and to some really niche, very specific things that we kept. Like, I just call this soft hoarding. If they're like down the line, if y'all see me just like completely surrounded by stacks of things, like, definitely intervene on my behalf, which is kind of happening now. If you look at my studio, we're not going into my bedroom. That's just, no, it's just too many materials. But my family would keep some really random things. This is my grandpa's dentist chair that my uncle bought for him to do continue his practice of dentistry. He wasn't licensed in the United States, so it was something to give him this autonomy for, and trying to play around with making portraits of my family, whether their presents are specifically physical or intangible, or represented through other small things. But playing around with the image illusion chicory with this kind of flat prop that I was making from pictures. I'm going to go back even further to the first photograph that I really uh, inspired to me to be a photographer. Sandy Scolan. I saw this picture, and I think it was like grade school, middle school, probably, at the Brooks Museum. There's their new name. Oh my God, they're gonna kill me if I don't remember the name. The Brooks Museum in Memphis Art Museum, man. They changed their name. It's hard to remember. I'm sorry. And this was the first picture I saw in the rotunda, the first space, and I just realized, like, oh, I can't be this sort of photographer like Sadie. She's really cool, but this was the picture that really I always go back to, and thinking about where I am, and also shouting out to Justine Curlin, just as my secret way of checking the time for good. And being in conversation with Justine as a friend, as a colleague, she was the first guest critic at Yale when I was at MFA there, and just was the first person that just really helped me, and actually listened to me, and just helped me with sequencing, and just really adjusting my perspective. A lot of people did that, like Chloe Simmons too, but Justine was going through a collage period. All of this was sort of this uh, work I'm showing prior to this, these two slides, are coming from facades, and just this body work that started out in maybe 2016, 2017. It's something I'm continuously returning to. I'm trying to think of more ideas, but just seeing Curlin has been really amazing to talk to, and has been really great to learn from, especially being so open about her process of something we weren't so conscious of. I think all this kind of collage elements started happening during lockdown. And I'm getting distracted by the drill outside, so I hope you guys don't hear that. I'm so sorry. But it was really amazing to be sort of aware of each other's like collaging, but we weren't like specifically like knowing exactly what the other was working on, but she was really amazing and just seemed just like, oh yeah, use this glue. I would use this exactly. This is my setup, and like very amazed. So I do thank her for a bit of that influence. And other ways I was trying to explore collage, not through just turning the camera to this bit of picture, this a bit of picture. I just want to go back, just thinking of making these pictures, the making photographing in camera these props, these things presented for the camera. I wanted to make the thing that's out of place is usually often my body. I want to just point that out. In exploring collage through the photo montage, making this David Hockney, I was really going through a David Hockney renaissance a few years ago. There's somewhere stuck in a box somewhere, but they're really fun to make. Trying to expand what is possible, especially the photograph is a ready-made cutout already. It's already working. We're already working in fragmentation. So I just really started suddenly understanding like, oh yeah, this fragmentation is the subject matter. This makes so much sense to work in the mediums of fragmentation that is collage and photography. It's my grandmother's garden that she kept up for a while, and trying to, I keep making different iterations of this work. And during this period, I was returning home a lot to Memphis, exploring the landscape, and often running into these kind of photographic collage walls. I have no idea what that drill is, so I'm trying to work it through. I'm so sorry, guys. And running into these collage walls and realizing how immediately that's how people display photographs. My family did not do that. I don't think we barely have a hearth, and if there were pictures, they were just like tucked away. And often the worst pictures of yourself like would be on display on the wall if they were. So it was not like a whole gallery of things like that. And I was just really struck by it. It influenced a lot of how I was presenting work in probably it was forever, just thinking about how my work is received in the world. And I think probably starting around 2018 to 2019, I worked with different kinds of printing, archival inkjet to commercial UV print, vinyl stickers, temporary tattoos. There's really specific things that some of the things that were helping me create these photographic props that now has influenced my presentation, working with different sizes and working with photo corners, borrowing other languages from the family album space, and thinking about how this has been such a great fruitful place to think about, especially if family history isn't accounted for in history at all. It's not something one could find on the internet. It's something that we have to put that and scribe ourselves to manifest, to log, and to inventory. So the installation, this is from Baxter Street, the Camera Club of New York. I love them a lot. And just each exhibition, because it didn't really have a studio space, it was really hard to work on the collage work at a given time, due to the lack of space, quite literally. So every exhibition was an opportunity to kind of reiterate and play around with what I could do with the pictures. That show, Ghost Bites at Baxter Street, was part of uh, the Next Step Award. from the Aperture Baxter Street and the 7G Foundation. Um, and it gave me an opportunity to work with Leslie Martin and Studio Lynn and publish my first book, my first monograph. Yay. And there was this section, I remember talking to Leslie. I love this section. I really had a hard time doing this. I kind of had a brownout of how I did do photo collaging, but this was a different level for me. And Leslie was so amazing to encourage me to do kind of a section of summarizing some of the photographic works into this a section of collage work. So I would point to this as being really influential into the installations that you'll see. We're going to show you some pictures pretty soon. But I was having fun with just the space. I think one of the critiques I had, because critique is really awesome to get. Feedback is awesome. Not that I listen to everything, but I really I like that some folks caught that there wasn't sort of a sense of pattern, a sense of like motif that I was following. Unlike like Justine would find these amazing intricate rhythms to the images that she was cutting up. And continuing the other collages, there's a High Museum, really thinking about layering at this moment and just bringing back those pictures with the collage walls and how pictures are displayed in a space. Like I didn't grow up with this at all. Like this is just so still like so familiar for a lot of people, and this is just so exotic to me. It's like, oh man, people have so many pictures back then, and it just the opportunity to kind of use the space and exhibitions. Like this was part of Ghost Bites next door at the Baxter Streets old cafe space, project space. And I was they allowed me to just take over the whole buildings essentially in 2022 is awesome, or 2023 by this time. And This was a tapestry bringing together all the images that my friends, Asian American friends, that I gave disposable cameras to, and we were trying to summarize the experience at a time where like Asian anti-Asian sentiment was really high, kind of still it is still. And through the collage was trying to sort of create a democracy of not everyone's pictures are going to be pointed out specifically to a person. It's all mixed together. Some will cover others more, and some pictures might not be able to be seen, and some could be seen in its totality, and it's still fragmented. And I just love all those elements coming together to be this sort of constellation of our connections to each other. This is
Sorry,
the set.
I have a question. Sorry to cut
Yeah,
you off there. Because as we're seeing this progression of you using cutouts as props or stand-ins for yourself, and also this like layering, and we're now looking at the first variant of Flatlands, which is currently on view at Addison. I
yeah.
wondered if you could speak a little bit more about your decision-making process. How do you decide when an image needs to remain a photograph versus when it needs to be reconfigured into a new form, like a pillow or a cutout or like vinyl? Maybe, if you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it's we stay on this image, but I think the decision early on was it started with making the southern landscapes into these backdrops. And right before this is March in 2020, and I was about to go on a plane with back to Memphis with these trying to make these new pictures, thinking about the background as another form of the cutout, and then we all got caught in lockdown. So suddenly I had a studio practice or tried to do a studio practice since then. And so that I think that was those lines of thinking kind of went into uh, being able to have a retrospective way of looking at my archive and finding these small parts that are really interesting. And what started through Leslie's suggestion of looking at my past work and collaging them up, printing them in small test prints, and then cutting up those into collage elements, um, uh, led me to pay attention to these moments in these pictures within the images I've made in the past. And that's really how it started, and how I was picking these images. I really hope you're not hearing this drilling. I was not expecting this loud drilling. Um, and pretty soon it became an exercise of looking through the different ways what I was inventorying through not just my professional camera that was making these art pictures, but I was using a smartphone, my iPhone, these disposable cameras and these like really quick cameras to make notes, research that like these are not meant to be anything. And then I was also having editorial work. One in particular sent me to markets, Asian American run markets in the area. And that also went into, surprisingly, it got enveloped into it. So there was some past pictures that had these moments that felt really right for to be cut out, but not thinking about them as a prop for some reason. Yeah. And this is how I got here. um,
I like this slide that we're currently on. I'm noticing that the windows is kind of incorporated into the work, and it
yes,
reminded me of when you were speaking about this soft collage work, about your grandmother's garden, this act of recycling, cultivating, and earlier your tendency to hoard objects. I'm also,
yes,
thinking of how plants grow in and around architecture, so like, in cracks in the ground. And I feel that they're kind of related. Even in the show at the gallery right now, the installation completely takes over this whole space. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like does the installation adapt to the spaces that they're shown, and how do you know when the installation is complete?
um, I think we had to recently decided on the last question of how it's completed is we had a I think we decided to quantify it at a number because it just kept on going. It's something I will continue this act of cutting up my pictures into this display as especially the technology is really interesting right now. Being able to make these cutouts out of onto through the dye sublimation on the aluminum process to making more volumetric pieces like the pillows. I don't volumetric, I guess that's a word. Um, and it just really using to answer the spatial question. Yeah, I think I had a deconstructive moment, which should have happened at Yale. I think it did, but this was my second deconstructive moment, like a second growth spurt with photography, and I think just not wanting to be so much always constrained to a still static image. I love making pictures. I love making photographs. And I think there was something kind of, I don't want to say Sisyphusian or the labor of cutting these out, but over time, just accumulating them, that's something that had happened prior, like the kissing pictures I've done in the past, is a form of that accumulation of still making those pictures. I've been making those kissing pictures since 2010. So kind of cutting my parts of the pictures, past pictures into these moments, to these props, to these cardboards sort of made sense to accumulate them. And each time I was able to work with them was through these different residencies. So it kind of influenced that didn't necessitate it, but the changing of the format made sense. That these installations aren't meant to be as static as a picture. If it were, it would end up a photograph, which was the original intention of these pictures. Starting with Kina Saito, I managed to have this large space for the summer in 2024, and finally got to see all this props I was making for the last 4 years, then 5 years last year. And I wanted to be making these other types of photographs that are not always a self-portrait, but also kind of answering some things for me, but also working within the realm of the studio, working, how do you make pictures within the space? Janice Guy had this really amazing phrase, mise en abyssement. I I feel like I wanted to say that word correctly and I did not. But I've made these installations to find these moments to make these kind of inspired by Renaissance Baroque paintings of still life of these melted candles, these rotten fruits, to something that's really displaying elegant, really desirable objects. But I kept running out of space, so it was really fun to be a sort of type of photographer or artist that works in portability, compactness. They did fit in a box really nice. Um, and the next year, being able to be at Lighthouse Works. This is actually at Lighthouse Works and not Kina Saito, and Lighthouse in Fisher's Island, and in preparation for my first museum show at the Addison that is closing this week. Oh my gosh. It was just a lot of irons in the fire of just um, playing around in what was possible within the space and working with not just the walls, but the floor. But is there a table? Is there a way to elevate these things and really kind of recontextualize these images, these pictures of pictures, and hopefully in an exciting way. But is wasn't until the open studios of both these residencies, at least with Kino Saito especially, like there was this sort of enjoyment, not sort of, but a really great experience just walking through the space and being reminded of the Chinatown marketplaces, people just visiting LA and seeing all the flea markets, the thrift stores, the people selling wines and these really elegant lo-fi package way of fruits vendors on the street. So they're really inspired um, that kind of line of thinking. I'm just going to breeze through the Addison show since we're just going to talk about the higher picture show, really. If you have a chance to catch it, it's closing this after the Saturday. It's outside of Boston. And just really thank Ali, Gordon, and Rachel, the really great team. And last in the art handlers for putting the show on. I was just I just so I'm still taken aback by just people agreeing like, yeah, let's just do this installation. It's the first time. This is like literally the first time I did this. And I think Millie, we can probably talk about this. Is I don't think you guys were aware of what I was doing at that moment, and I managed to get into the residency at Pioneer Works while the show was opening. So started off with an empty studio and then quickly accumulated. And I think you guys visited and didn't realize, yeah, all of this. Um, yeah, I don't know how to start on this, but maybe I'll go through the higher pictures of this. There's a bit more, but I don't know.
Tommy, you also often talk about photography and how photography is a form of time travel for you.
Mhm.
Do you feel that it relates to the installation? And I'm wondering, is the process of creating this soft collage a way for you to re-inhabit or reclaim spaces that, oftentimes might feel lost or inaccessible, or are you creating a new space that didn't exist before?
Yeah, I think I kind of also should answer your earlier question about the garden cultivation as well. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of that. I think it's a bit of distillation, but also kind of me in real time sifting through the different languages I had to grow up with, especially English is not my first language. I think people are very surprised every time I do mention that. It's like I learned English through I Love Lucy. And so I think experiencing the world in a Plato's cave kind of situation of like, oh, not through photographs but TVs, the seriality of that um, uh, has really I don't know, has let me stay within that domestic space, the home space a lot, and the private and personal, especially that comes those private customs, like not just hoarding plastic bags, but what my grandmother did of just starting her gardens by using the leftover herbs and the seeds that came from the takeout, Chinese-Vietnamese takeout. That's how she started her garden. Also, something like my family does not want to teach me is sewing, and I think there's a bit of rebellion and trying to translate those familial customs for myself through photographs, through the collage methods. So a lot of this is taking things from not, of course, all these are from past pictures, um, and collapse. It's fun to collapse them all into a singular space to see that time isn't really relevant, and looking at all of these different moments. Not all of them are pictures, but they're all fragmented, fully formed, but also a fully formed picture is also leaving something out. I'm hoping I'm answering your question in a very, very slow burn way. But yeah, some of the pictures that I've done were not just editorial or fine art, but research pictures, and I'm finding myself like making a lot more of those images that are not meant to be published, and helps me navigate the world, and just being drawn to the subject matter of Chinatown, but really home familial activities such as learning the word yesterday, the Vietnamese word. I'm going to butcher this, like "ngõ," "ngồi," "ngồi," Um, and my friend seeing this, the newsprint being put down. It's like, oh, is it like a family get together for karaoke? It's like kind of, it's like a hot plate getting together. And what my family, what I was in charge of putting newsprints down because we couldn't afford tablecloth. I told this story before, and taking that moment and having that being, I think, one of the first images I laid for this installation. So yeah, and trying to bring the home, the outside into this one space completely. And I want like people to find like their own pictures within looking around this installation. Uh, I'm just gonna check on the time. Okay, cool. We're doing great on time. A good timekeeper. But yeah, I do go to a lot of markets. My grandmother and my dad's side owned a one of the few Vietnamese run grocery stores in Memphis. There is this Chinese Delta history, or Chinese Mississippi Delta Chinese living in the area, and their association with grocery stores. Uh, and I think part of revisiting these images, especially produce, these things that food as a main connector, or bringing the sense of familial activity together, I think was another thing I'm constantly thinking about, and how to do that through photography that isn't something as present through my self-portrait work. And I think we end it with this last slide as we kind of tease you with Millie being at the space itself. So hi, and it's something for the higher picture show, especially that that installation will be continuously added on to um, until yeah, I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, so I think this is a good time to open up the Q&A for the audience. And as that is going on, maybe you can talk a little bit about scale in the objects that you are incorporating into the installation, the components of the soft collage.
Yeah, I wasn't very interested or keen on having the bit of accuracy of the scale, especially being these images were being made. I'm trying to phrase this where I don't get in trouble. Being made while on the job. No, I'm kidding. While on break. The images for the cutouts are made sort of in a rush. So the scale had was the one thing I had to not be so conscious about. But I kind of like the mistranslation of these objects. Um, and the way that it does play with perception, especially looking at these, they're not meant to be as accurate, but how photography has this sort of limitation to its way of rendering objects in its own way. There's scale isn't really something that the photography, the camera is concerned with. But there's something kind of fun with this sort of Alice in Wonderland situation. And especially there's a bit of flattening happening in real time, like looking at these images, there's like, oh yeah, this is a flat image, this is a photograph, this is a cutout of a three-dimensional object, and it still kind of has this volume to it, and a sense of flatness. And then you could see the borders, you could see the edges, that there's something a bit off about these cutouts, this object itself, this image that you're seeing. Um,
We have a
yeah,
question from the
yeah.
audience. So, first question, you mentioned that initially your art practice was perceived as curious by your family. Did you
Hmm.
find that their relationship to your work has changed as your work has progressed?
Um, I think I don't know if it has changed. I think early on there was a definitely disinterest. I think even in a more personal thing that my family didn't really like that I was in art school and undergrad, so there was a bit of a silent treatment there, which understandable is really um, a not just a hobby for me, photography, art for me, and going through it uh, was kind of so peculiar for my family. Up until before my grandmother passed last year, was 2 years ago, that she still referred to me as a teacher rather than an artist, which I think I found it really funny that she finds that more honorable, which teachers are amazing. Uh, but yeah, the relationship to my art making hasn't really changed. They do see it as something strange, but it's not like a crime or bad, or it's not losing money, I guess, at the same time. So they're kind of like, it's they're kind of distant. I'm just interested still, but they put up with me. They put up with me. My family has to.
There any more questions? Okay, so one more question. The dominant imagery in this installation at the gallery seems more focused on the food items and other household objects. Is there a reason that your image is not as prominent in this tableau?
Um, I think there was a conscious effort to not make the repetition. I don't want to repeat the early exhibition of higher pictures with the collaboration between my mom and me. So I wanted to sort of hide or move away from those images, not to stop making them, but to focus on the other um things that I'm interested in about photography, about the medium itself. Um, and yeah, I think I am sort of like a Where's Waldoing here in the installation. So I am in it, but I'm more interested in the fragmentation, not just my body, but the everyday and the spaces. Food is a factor, not because it's a activity that does bring my family together, but has a basis of forming communities, forming marketplaces, forming a kind of communal community needs. But also this thing that we offer to our home shrines, to our altars, to our ancestors. And I kind of like the symbolism that food carries, especially in Baroque still life paintings, where its association to mortality and all of those uh, themes or is what interests me. And there's so much like flexibility and not just ambiguity, but there's a lot of things that it can tie to the imperialism, to economic trade, and all that and things that were available and like tomatoes were not a European or Asian thing. It was like completely from the Americas. Yeah, some examples like that. I think the chat's going out and I can't bring it up.
Another question. There's a lot of movement in the way that the images are arranged. Are you considering working with the moving image at some point down the road? Forgive me if you've already have and I'm not aware.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm working on a lot of stuff, so the chances are yes. But I am working on my first feature film. I don't think Millie even knew that. So hi, surprise. Yeah, I'm always working on something. But I have a background in film, at least I definitely have it for acting, but I've have been working on something that is my first feature film. I might incorporate sort of stop animation with these props, but I feel like that's going to be in its own thing, especially thinking how to change the scale from a room size like this to something more manageable. Not that it's something I'm just really interested in, like how to make this work in more specific toned down way. So movies, stop animation the moving image are definitely on the table. Yes. Let's do the studio visit. I'll send you my Vimeo link. I think there is a draft of it somewhere.
Okay.
Wow, Tommy, we were not expecting you to tell us that you are working on a feature film.
It's just like I've been saying that for years, and now that's on the record, it is it lasts its clock by 58 minutes about, and I just want to shoot a few more things. But yeah, it is something I'm really excited about, and I will work on it. I am working on it.
That's super exciting. And yes, thank you so much for telling us so much about your work and giving us wonderful insight into not just this installation at Higher Pictures up through February 7th. Everybody needs to head over there in Brooklyn. Um, but giving us the wider context, right? And sort of showing us how you got there, which I think is really special. And we thank you so much. Thank you, Millie, and thank you, Tommy.
Oh,
Thank you,
thanks, thanks, Harry.
Tommy.
Thanks, NJ. Thanks, Millie. Thanks, y'all, for joining.
Everybody, run to Higher Pictures and make sure to catch the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for spending time with us.